Welcome back to Psych Vids. Today we are asking, what is learned helplessness? All right, let's kick things off with a feeling that I'm willing to bet is familiar to just about everyone listening. It's that feeling of being completely and utterly stuck.
You know the one I'm talking about, right? You try something, it doesn't work. You try again, maybe a little harder, and still nothing. Pretty soon that little voice in your head stops asking, what else can I try? And it starts saying, why even bother? And then you just stop.
Now, here's the thing. This isn't about being lazy. It's not a character flaw. It's a real, recognized psychological phenomenon called learned helplessness. Basically, it's what happens when your brain learns from experience that your efforts don't make a difference. It's almost like your brain is trying to conserve energy by giving up on a situation it thinks is hopeless.
So how do we even figure this out? Well, the story behind it is actually kind of shocking. It all comes from a series of experiments that, let's just say, would be pretty controversial if they were done today.
Let's go back to the 1960s. A psychologist named Martin Seligman was doing research that would totally flip our understanding of motivation and despair on its head. In 1967, he ran these now famous experiments that laid the groundwork for this whole theory, which later became super important for understanding things like depression.
Okay, so here's the basic setup. Seligman had 3 groups. The first group was put in a stressful situation, but they figured out pretty quickly that they could press a panel to make it stop. Simple. They had control. The second group, they got the exact same stress, but nothing they did worked. That panel did absolutely nothing. They were powerless. Then he took both of those groups and put them in a new situation where it was actually super easy for anyone to escape the stress.
And this is where the big aha moment happened. The first group, the one that had control before, they had no problem. They escaped easily. But the second group, the one that had been powerless, most of them just laid down and took it. They didn't even try to get away, even though the solution was right there in front of them. So get this, because this is the key. It wasn't the stress itself that caused them to give up. It was the experience of having no control. They had literally learned that their actions were useless.
Okay, so that's what happened in a lab decades ago. But how does this play out for us right now? Well, this learned response builds what you can think of as 3 invisible walls in our minds, and they're held up by a really specific negative way of thinking.
We call them the 3 Ps. The first P is personal. That's the voice that says, it's my fault. You take all the blame. The second is permanent. This is the thought that it's always going to be like this. It will never change. And the third P is pervasive. This is when you think, this one failure means my whole life is a failure. You let it spill over into everything.
And you see this pattern pop up everywhere. It's the student who fails a couple of tests and just decides, well, I'm just bad at math and stops trying. It's the employee who gets shot down over and over and just completely checks out, doing the bare minimum. Or, on a more serious note, it's why people sometimes stay in really unhealthy relationships. They've been conditioned to believe that nothing they do can possibly make things better.
But, and this is the most important part of this entire explainer, it's right there in the name. Learned helplessness. And if something can be learned, well, guess what? It can be unlearned.
This is where Seligman's work gets really powerful. He introduced the flip side of the coin, learned optimism. It's all about retraining your brain to fight back against those 3 Ps. It's about learning to see setbacks not as permanent personal failures, but as temporary, specific challenges you can actually overcome. It's about taking your power back.
I absolutely love this quote because it just nails it. Learned helplessness convinces you that you're trapped, that the walls are a mile high. But the truth is, the trap is often just a belief. You just have to remind yourself that you still have the power to take a step.
Okay, so that sounds great, right? But how do you actually do it? How do you start knocking down those invisible walls and, remind your feet how to move again? It all starts with a few really simple, conscious steps. First, you just have to start recognizing the pattern. Start listening for that why bother or it's no use voice in your head. Second, challenge it. Argue with it. Ask yourself, okay, is this really 100% my fault? Is it really going to last forever? Does this one bad thing really ruin my entire life? And finally, and this one is the game changer, take one small, manageable action. Don't try to solve everything at once. Just focus on one tiny thing you can control. These are your small wins, and they are like little pieces of evidence you give your brain to prove that your actions do matter.
So I'll leave you with that question. This isn't about some massive overhaul of your life overnight.
It's about rebuilding that sense of control, one tiny brick at a time. So, what's one small thing you can control today? Starting right there, that's how you begin to unlearn helplessness and remember just how capable you truly are.
Subscribe so you don't miss an episode.